Okay, I think we are live. It didn't do the countdown. I accidentally took the countdown off. So we're live here with our friend Eliana. Eliana, you've been on here a few times. I don't think I have to do like an intro or anything. But Steve is not able to make it today. He has to take care of some family things. So sorry, you're stuck with just us. If people comment, I'll try to pay attention. Give me grace, people, because I'm not used to doing this without Steve. But okay, so you literally just posted a video about. Are you weird if I like just play your video? Do you feel weird about that?
Oh yeah, no, feel free.
Okay, cool. I will. Okay, we're gonna play the video that you just posted. Because I was literally thinking about the same thing yesterday. And what frustrates me so much is that centrist Dems still use it as such a line of attack against progressives about abolishing the police, abolishing ICE, and abolishing the police, really. And until we can understand that it's all interconnected, like, what are we fighting? Like, it's so infuriating. Anyways, I'm just going to play your video. Share screen. There you are. Uh-oh.
Can't hear the sound.
Dang it. Oh, I think I did that wrong. Okay, let me try that again. Share screen, window. Also share audio, share. Okay, how do I rewind it now? Let me just click out and click back.
Abolishing ICE isn't just a current emergency. It is a decade of failure of the duopoly. I'm going to take you back to July 2016 when Philando Castile was murdered while his 4-year-old daughter sat in the backseat. 10 years from the month, ICE has murdered Juan Sebastian Guerrero while his 3-year-old daughter sat in the backseat. The parallels of these two stories being a decade apart are not an accident. After Philando was murdered, many of us took to the streets to demand defunding American police agencies as an accountability measure against the escalating militarization of police nationwide. Politicians answered by claiming that we were radical and idealistic. The duopoly largely agreed that defunding the police was a non-starter, and to appease the protesters, they reformed by demanding more body cams, as if that was going to end the murders. It didn't. Instead, they created cop cities, increased police budgets nationwide, and continued to murder people, and dogs too. Law enforcement doubled down on the "I feared for my life" narrative and received very little consequence. And all of it led to what we are seeing today. The U.S. has one of the highest prison rates in the world. The duopoly largely ignored years of protests against ICE and detention centers, and instead, they increased the funding and built out more detention facilities. Similar to the police argument, the reformists claim we need ICE. We knew 10 years ago that if this country didn't defund the police, the system would devolve into fascism under a much more authoritarian-leaning leadership, that agencies would become more militarized, and that prisons would become concentration camps, and that more daughters would witness their fathers being executed by the state while they sat horrified in the backseat. Nothing in this country is isolated. It is systematically calculated. And if we continue to repeat the past, we are not surviving the future. Abolishing ICE.
This is a really good example of the difference between a creator journalist and a creator advocate, because here's me just like spiraling, which like basically we're saying the same thing, but I'm just like, hi, I can't do this.
Killed a man in Maine this morning.
It's hard for me to be able to envision the path to abolishing ICE because police have killed over 600 Americans already this year. I mean, policing in America is the blueprint of ICE. You can't separate the two. Private prisons, private detention centers, convict leasing, basically, prison labor, mass incarceration to mass deportation.
So yeah, basically me spiraling over the same thing. What do you think? I mean, I think there's like a couple of issues, and I was reading about this. And have you ever read Miriam Kaba and Kelly Hayes' book, Let This Radicalize You?
No, it's on my list, but I haven't read it.
So good. It's so good. But they talk about how the defund the police movement, at first they did like what you were saying, they kind of threw people a bone just to get the protesters to quiet down or to like
Mhm.
stop. But liberals will never want to stand behind something that seems so it seems so radical because the American government is dependent on modern day slavery. Our entire capitalism is dependent on it. And so they're always going to find a way to preserve it. And it does really concern me that so many people are able to conceptualize why we need to like everything we're seeing to ICE is no different than what is happening in South Central Los Angeles, that's happening here at south side of Chicago. And this has been the real life for Black communities forever. So to me, I'm like, what are we fighting if we can't also get people to join the fight at the front line of authoritarianism, at the front line of fascism? Blue, hi Blue, you're in here too. The state only has one major power, which is the monopoly of violence. Yes, that is so true. But yeah, tell me more about your thoughts and like why it's so hard to like break through to people that it's not a radical idea, that like it blows my mind.
Okay, I'm just gonna close the window real quick because somebody is pumping their white girl music outside my window, and I'm like, what the hell? So give me 2 seconds.
Okay. Perf. While she does that, is anyone else in here? Just Blue? It's okay if it's only you, Blue.
Okay.
Blue, you could also join if you're around, if you want to join.
That was insane. I'm like literally I forgot my windows were open and they're just like yeah, okay. So what are my thoughts? My thoughts, and this is probably because I just read the introduction to a book that I'm holding in my hands called Capital Hates Everyone. And they literally like made the distinction between, between how people use protest in revolutionary ways, but capitalism monetizes it. And it's a fascinating book. I don't agree with everything in it, but I do find that the parallels that they make are really, really important. And in the video that you played that I just posted today, I didn't make that distinction just yet because I want people to kind of get over the shock of like these constant murders before I, like really go down and heavy on the capitalism of it all. Because, ICE detention centers are for-profit concentration camps. The way that they make their money is by having people detained and staying in there. They have a per bed rate. And that is largely due to, like I mentioned in the video, the duopoly. It's a failure of the duopoly to ensure that, if you're going to be in opposition, be a fucking opposition. But instead, what we've had for well over a decade, I just mentioned it because of Philando Castile and his murder happening on July 10 years ago. It's a complete failure of Democrats being a legit opposition. When you align yourself with capitalistic tendencies, when you align yourself with corporate interests, when you align yourself with what the billionaires want you to do, you're going to get for-profit concentration camps. You're going to get a militarized secret police. You're going to have these problems. And it's all going to be under the guise of we need to protect borders. We need to have, we need to fund the police to like protect our communities, even though they're doing the exact opposite. And so for me, it's really frustrating because I feel the anger that other people feel, but I feel it in a different manner because I don't have a short-term memory. I have lived through this time and again. It feels like almost every 5 years at this point, we're having another crisis and another, murder that like wakes people up. And yet we continue to live under a system that chooses to oppress us at this point. And so, yeah, for me, it was just really important that like, as people are consuming this news and it's breaking their hearts that they remember that we had the opportunity to fix this and we didn't. And I when I say we, I mean we. I don't just mean Republicans. This is a failure of our entire system. It's also a failure of the centrists who decided to hop on the bandwagon with, you know, the Bidens and the Harrises of the world who said, no, we can't, you know, defunding the police is not a winning strategy. Defunding the police is not what we should be doing. We need them, right? And they aligned themselves with the police unions across the nation and thought that's how we're going to gain Republican voters. That's how we're going to get them to come to our side. And I remember watching the DNC being like, wow, she's going to fucking lose. And we did. And it was because she decided not to embrace populist rhetoric that talks about defunding the police, not just to get rid of police, but to fund social programs, to fund things that are going to curb crime, that are going to curb, you know, poverty, which increases crime. Instead, they decided to go with, yeah, no, we need ICE and we need the police. And so now we're.
And it's what's so frustrating. Well, first of all, like there is so much to be understood about what abolition actually is. And like, I'll have to, you know, we can talk about that another time, but the idea of abolishing the police is thrown around often without people understanding that abolish is not just like a subtraction of what we currently have. It's building an infrastructure to prevent the conditions of crime in the first place. Because communities, I mean, like there is a strong correlation between poverty and crime. And that's just like, all we would have to do is fund communities. And so it's like, they couldn't get Republicans with the messaging they're using. No, but if they're like, hey, we're going to start funding your community. Hey, we are going like, they don't have to say defund the police. Just fund, like, why is that the whole line? I pulled up this, like there's a Zine of a specific chapter in Let This Radicalize You that like is talking about what you are saying. So I want to like read some of it really quickly because I think it's probably like very similar to what you're talking about. I'm going to pull it up. So in spring 2020, when the United States saw mass rebellion protests that included acts of property destruction, struck fear into officials around the country as support for uprisings ran high. Cities across the United States saw billions of dollars in property damage. Local governments offered scattered sacrificial indictments of killer cops in an effort to appease the public. The words Black Lives Matter began to appear on large block letters, roadways, major cities, painted by municipal workers. The block letter murals were co-opted efforts to placate an outraged public and to depict nervous mayors and other rattled officials as allies, which, yeah, and like what did that do? Really, what did that do? By mimicking protest art, officials sought to refashion Black Lives Matter into a mainstream phenomenon, something that belonged to everyday people and politicians alike. Blah, blah, blah. The murals were a predictable response to the upheaval of protests in a time of isolation and crisis when so many people felt left behind or were even left to die by their own government. The George Floyd protests saw not only unprecedented participation, but also startling levels of public approval, even after a police precinct burned to the ground in Minneapolis. The fact that the public remained supportive of the protests, even in the wake of that fire, put officials around the country in an unstable position. When a radical concept or movement forces its way into the mainstream, the first reaction of the authority is to eject it. But if that radical presence cannot be ejected, structural maintenance workers, such as public officials and others who benefit from the status quo, will attempt to defang and reconfigure it so that the concept or movement is no longer disruptive to the order of things. Over time, support for the 2020 protests predictably dissipated. It was a presidential election year, and fears that protests would help fuel Trump victory led liberals to insist that the protests should cease entirely. Others argued that the protests should continue, but that they should remain orderly, peaceful, and non-disruptive. In some places like Portland, rebellion continued for months as protesters faced off with Donald Trump's Fed squads in the streets. But in cities around the country, we also saw the rise of the defund the police movement, which uplifted longstanding abolitionist efforts to redirect funds and resources away from police departments and towards potentially life-giving services for communities. These efforts were targeted fiercely by liberal pundits, public officials, and their political fandoms. The idea that defunding the police was too radical, they insisted. Some suggested a return to the tired and veiled rhetoric of reform, arguing that such language would be better accepted by the public. Many mainstream Democrats, including Joe Biden, actually insisted to fund the police was critical to reform. It's true that the language of reform is more easily accepted by the public because language that lacks substance is generally inoffensive, yet reform poses no threat to the order of things, and in practice often leads to policies that further entrench that order. Reform is not a battle cry, it is a political pacifier. The defund the police movement was challenging the order and would ultimately be blamed for the electoral losses of politicians who never embraced it, as well as for supposedly rising crime rates. To understand why, we have to understand how violence is framed in relation to social movements. I mean, the whole thing is really good. I'll put this in my link tree if people want to read the whole thing. But it's like, so to watch, as I think a lot of people are only paying attention now with ICE, and like as somebody who also like, I remember when Trayvon Martin died, I grew up conservative, evangelical Christian. I was like going to a Christian school at the time. And like, to me, that was very radicalizing to see people make excuses for why a child should be killed for wearing a hoodie. And to see like these uprisings keep happening and yet police killings keep growing. And now ICE is added into the mix. And ICE, we don't know how many people have died because of ICE. We don't know how many people are dying in detention centers. We don't know how many people are dying once they're sent to a country that isn't even their own, or sent back to a country where their lives were in danger and that's why they escaped. Like, we're seeing so much of violence and it makes me like, it's the same as people were like, we just have to wait an election cycle because once Trump is out, like, we are causing so much suffering around the world at an insane level. And it is all the same. Like, America is violent. Like, America, its existence is rooted in genocide and rooted in apartheid, and it has never stopped. And so I like, what do you think we need to do to get people to understand without it sounding too radical?
I think the opposite. I think we need to be radical, because at this point we have moved so far right. We are leaning, like, we're already under fascism and we are 2 inches away from full authoritarian rule. So at this point, the status quo is so far right that anything you say outside of it is going to already seem radical. And so I think that we need to start. Okay, my real thing here is that this modern obsession with nonviolence, I think, is controlled opposition.
100%.
Like you mentioned, this country was born out of violence. Nothing about America has been nonviolent. All of it has been violence. And so for me, it's like, well, how do we get people on board without making it seem like it's already radicalized? Like,
so that brings me to the next part here. Like, the terms violence and nonviolence don't have static and indisputable definitions. Different people deploy the terms in a wide variety of ways, blah, blah, blah. The destruction of property is usually viewed as violent only if it disrupts profit or the maintenance of wealth. But if food is destroyed because it cannot be sold while people go hungry, that's not considered violent. Under the norms of capitalism, if a person's belongings are tossed onto the sidewalk during an eviction and consequentially destroyed, that likewise is not considered violent according to the norms of this society. Those destructive acts are part of the order of things. As organizers, we're practitioners of nonviolence, but we also recognize that fetishizing distinctions between violence and nonviolence can lead to the indulgence of rhetoric about good and bad protesters, where peaceful protesters are celebrated and violent protesters, for example, those who engage in property destruction that disrupts profit, are viewed as disposable and disreputable. This licenses people to care about the cause being protested without caring about what happens to the bad protesters. For example, even as significant numbers of people supported the uprising following the racist murder of George Floyd, many fewer people vocally defended the rights of protesters who were arrested for the acts of property destruction and funneled into the racist carceral system. I mean, and in moments of unrest, it's important to remember that, as Martin Luther King Jr. stated, there's no greater purveyor of violence in the world than the U.S. government. From war to policing to incarceration to border violence to the slashing of the social safety net, the U.S. government kills untold millions. The violence of rebellion is infinitesimal by comparison. Yeah, we are like totally fetishizing the idea of nonviolence as if our existence, like the examples here, if you're letting people go hungry while food is being thrown away all the time, that's violence. But it's considered violence to like kick an ICE officer's car. Like, yeah, the definitions of violence are.
And capital is violent, right? Like it
Mhm.
depends on the exploitation of people, of the working class. It depends on poverty existing en masse in order to keep people tied to it. So capital is already violent. And then claiming that somebody vandalizing a storefront by
Mhm.
smashing a storefront window with a brick, that is more violent than the entire system of capitalism under white supremacist patriarchy. That is a moot point to me, because at this point I'm like, it's like what they do in Palestine, in occupied Palestine, where they say, well, you know, the kid threw a rock, therefore I had to shoot him, because rocks can be lethal, could potentially kill you if they hit you in the face. And it's like, you are equating apples and oranges. It is not the same. A kid throwing a rock at an IDF soldier who has like lethal weaponry is like,
And
it's
who's
the
not supposed to be
gaslighting of the
there.
century. Right.
And who's not, and that it's like the criminalization of resistance. The Palestinian people don't have a right to defend their own land. Like they're not, the IDF is not supposed to be in the West Bank. End of story.
Correct. So
Yeah.
I actually do have like this really interesting thing that this author wrote in his introduction, that I think like kind of really falls into what we're saying. So I don't want to read the whole thing, but basically he's talking about how capital tries to protect itself with policing. So I'm just going to start on this passage. He says, um, the process of constitution of the political subject, the forms of organization, the development of capabilities for the struggle, made possible by an interruption of the time of power, are immediately confronted with the quote unquote reasons of profit, property, and patrimony, which the uprising has not caused to disappear. And when he says uprising, he's talking about revolutionary protests. On the contrary, they are more aggressive. They immediately invoke the reestablishment of order, which is what we're seeing now, placing the police at the forefront while continuing, as if nothing had happened, the promulgation of reforms, quote unquote. Here, the alternatives are radical. Either the new political process manages to change capital's quote unquote reasons, or those same reasons will change it. So at this point, I'm like, fuck capitalism, because that's what's keeping us stuck. And the duopoly is by and large funded by corporatists who love capitalism. So throw the whole thing away is my main point. Throw it all away.
Yeah. And we're seeing, I mean, that's why you see in all of these primaries, there have been a lot of primaries where it's somebody who is protecting the establishment, and they're supposed to be the safe, like they're just getting so much money poured into them to protect the establishment. And then the person who will not take money from corporations or whatever is painted as like a violent extremist who is going to like change America for the worse or whatever. I am going to pull up Manu Raju and was interviewing Abdul Sayed the other day, and it's like the same line of attack. Defund the police, which I think he tries to say he never said that, but then he actually did. But like, it's like that shouldn't even be a line of attack. And also just stick with it, dude. Just say like, yeah, do you understand what defunding the police is?
I have a lot to say about this, but yeah, please do.
Okay. Let me find it. Okay, I think I found it. Share screen, audio. Okay. Let's see.
We can't hear anything.
Really?
No.
Ah! Hi, Jonathan Swift. Okay, this wasn't a good one anyway. But what were your thoughts on it? On the way. Okay, maybe this is better. But if you can't hear it, I have no idea. Okay, let me. Again, hard when Steve isn't here driving. Share screen, window, share audio. There we go. Okay, this should work.
Ask you about some scrutiny you've gotten for past social media posts that you deleted, including about defunding the police. Now, you've said recently you never called for defunding the police, but our K-File team here in CNN found interviews in the past where you did repeatedly back in 2020, including in the aftermath of George Floyd's killing. I want you to listen to your comments here.
I believe that we do need to defund the police insofar as defunding the police is disinvesting in the means of incarcerating someone or killing them on the streets. What if we were to invest in social services? What if we were to invest in public schools? What if we were to invest in public libraries? What would the world look like there? And I think that has to be the way we go. And that means both investing more in these services, and it also means investing less in police.
So why did you say you never called for defunding the police when it sounded like you did in the past?
You know, what's interesting about that comment is I go in as far as defining what I mean by that. You disagree with investing in libraries and public services and social services. You fixate on the word defund, but what I'm talking about is war material that we made too much of during the war in Iraq. And then because we had too much of it, we had to find somewhere to sell it. So we sold it to a whole bunch of local police departments. I believe in investing in retention and retirement for law enforcement. I've done work with law enforcement during my time in Wayne County.
But won't that issue of defunding the police, won't that become an electability issue in November?
Let me finish my answer, Mike. I actually don't think it is. I think the vast majority of people agree that they want to get home safely every night. I think the vast majority of law enforcement.
Okay. Your thoughts?
So many. I want to preface this by saying I do like Abdul. I think he is the best candidate in that race. The backtracking on the languaging of defunding the police, I feel like that is where he should be held accountable. Because not that I'm on the side of this reporter at all, because clearly the reporter has the agenda of saving capitalist interests or whatever. But Abdul had the perfect opportunity there to be like, yeah, this is what I said and this is what it means. And instead, he said what he meant without backing up the defunding part. And for me, it's like, why? Like, why even try to do that? And I actually spoke to a politician that was running in an LA race where I was doing a video with them. And I couldn't remember if they were for defunding the police. They were for so many other things, but I couldn't actually remember if it was a part of their platform to defund the police. But so much of what they had just debated was on track with that. And so in the video, or as we're recording, I'm like, yeah, and therefore defunding the police. And they literally stopped me and they were like, no, we can't say that. We can't say that. Don't record that. And I was just like, oh shit, like what's going on here? And so then we're talking because it was a super awkward moment. And I was like, okay, like what's with this? And they were like, well, do you want me to win this race or not? Spoiler alert, they lost the race. But I was just like, oh, there is still a faction within even the so-called progressive left that thinks that it is a losing strategy to talk about defunding the police. And it's actually a losing strategy to not embrace defunding the police at this point because they are so deeply unpopular. They are so massively funded and literally no one wants it. And programs that sending out mental health professionals when there's a mental health crisis rather than sending out police. Those are massively popular right now. And they are actively being implemented. Even in my city in LA, they are being implemented here and they are working and people love them. That is an aspect of defunding the police because you're not sending police to waste a tax dollars on mental health crisis that they're not even equipped to handle. And they're just trigger happy when they show up anyway. And then they get into lawsuits, which the taxpayers have to pay out, right? And so for me, it's extremely irritating to hear Abdul answer it that way because he's so consistent on everything else that it's like, why is this the one hill that you're willing to die on? This is a losing strategy at this point, just like the Israel thing. Just like the Israel thing. It's a losing strategy to not embrace defunding the police. It is a losing strategy to not embrace not taking AIPAC money. And he knows it on the AIPAC side, but for whatever reason, he's backtracking on the defunding the police side. And I think it's because the establishment is telling people, do not do defunding the police because that is not a winning strategy. And I have to disagree. I think everything is telling us that is not true.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's really important because they're going to go back and pull out what you said anyway and say, look, he lied. You might as well say, that's what I said and that's what I meant. And if people don't understand what that means, here is what I meant by that. Because they're going to find that line of attack anyway. So it's better to own it. Yeah, I think it is really, I always check this mapping police violence website. They there's only been 5 days this year that someone was not killed by police. 5 days this year. If we had a fraction of the outrage that we have when there's an ICE killing, which is already like people are starting to not have that much outrage, which I think is what they kind of depend on, is like they were able to kind of kill the defund the police movement. I know there are a lot of, abolitionist practitioners, especially in Black and brown communities, who are still fighting for it, but the mainstreaming of it, they were able to get people fatigued enough. And it's like the same thing with ICE, and it's all criminalization is the foundation of authoritarianism. So it's all forms of criminalization we need to be fighting and interrupting. And no, so I totally agree with you. I think it should have just been like, yeah, I said that and I meant that. And this is what that actually means. You just not understand.
Exactly. I said what I said. This is what the voters want. And that's what we're going to do. And on day one, we're going to do XYZ, fund social programs, fund, mental health services, take care of homelessness. Like that's what defunding the police is going to do for our city. And now this is what the voters want to do. And that's what we're going to do. Day one. Like that is the message. Like why fuck around with this like gaslighting tactic? Like I hope it's not coming from their communications person because I want to have a talk with them. Like hire me instead. Shit.
There is this, have you ever seen these like ride along episodes? Has Jim Jeffries been canceled? I don't know. But Jim Jeffries does these like ride alongs with police in different countries. Oh, they're so funny. I'm gonna put one on because if you look at like our police are not fucking normal. They are what it looks like in an authoritarian regime. Like it's not fucking normal for police to be. Oh, I'll just play the thing. Okay, share screen, turn volume on. Share. Okay.
Now that many states have legalized marijuana, some people worry that crime will go through the roof. So to test that theory, I rode along with some cops who have been dealing with legalized weed for decades in the latest installment of Jim's a Cop. My last police ride-along was in Birmingham, England. Things there were pretty low-key. They don't even carry guns. Sure, we had some laughs, but I'm not doing this bit to make friends. I need some action, and I know where to find it. Sex, drugs. When laws disappear, how bad do things get? Drunken brawls, stabbing, rape, murder. I stepped into Europe's den of depravity.
Bad boys, bad boys.
So, it was time to meet my partners.
Hi.
Hi,
Jim.
Boss. Welcome
Jim.
to Amsterdam.
All right, let's get some people. Who are we after? What's the number one crime?
shoplifting. There are a lot of pickpockets.
Pickpocketing is in the top slot. But that could turn violent quickly. Plus, the tourists probably deserve it.
Which tourist do you hate the most, the Australians or the British? The British are the worst drunks, aren't they?
They're drunk a lot, but
Well, what about the Americans, though?
the American people are afraid to ask us something.
Oh, they're scared of you.
Yeah.
That's just because they're conditioned to be scared of their own cops.
Yeah, but we are the most friendly cops in the world.
I don't know. You seem like a prickly fella. Bad boys, bad boys. And now you guys have got guns?
Yes.
You ever had to draw your gun?
Yeah, once.
Is this a tragic story, or are we about to have a laugh?
If you rob a bank in front of me,
Yeah.
I had to shoot.
Yeah.
And I hit him. He was not dead, but I hit him. And it happened in 83.
1983. When was the last time a police officer was killed in the line of duty?
Also a long time ago. People don't use the guns or the weapons against the police.
So that's the red light district.
Ah, this is where it is. We're coming up to some windows. I'll just have a look inside these. Why is everyone waving at us?
Yeah, they like us.
Is marijuana actually legal?
No.
It's not legal.
All of the drugs are illegal, but because they sell it on the shops, and we call it in Dutch gedoogbeleid.
We accept it.
We accept it.
Yeah, kadooby-doo. Just accept it. I mean, if they're selling it in the shops, there's really nothing a cop can do, right? Kooby-dooby-doo.
Bad boys, bad boys. I can't believe we haven't even heard the radio. The radio hasn't gone, there's a crime.
No.
Any problems at the Anne Frank Museum? Does anything ever come off there?
No.
Maybe there is a criminal at the Anne Frank Museum, but you just...
Anyways, it's just so wild to see the way like police work in other places where it's like he hasn't pulled his gun out since 1983. Like you actually don't have to live like that. We actually don't have to like be afraid. Like, but we cannot reform our police force because they were made to be slave catchers. They were made to be union busters or to stop the working class uprisings to control capital for the sake of people in power, to make sure that they had people literally like the Angola penitentiary in, was it Alabama, Louisiana? It went from plantation to penitentiary because they could just pick up Black people for the crime of looking at a white person or for not having a job or whatever and put them straight back in. So when our system has been set up that way, there's no reforming that. We can't just have a few laws and then our police turn into that, to the like Dutch version or to whatever other version. And it is like, it's so infuriating to be constantly gaslit by our politicians. And even to see the progressive ones kind of backtrack it. And it's like, no, like we need people who are bold enough. It almost feels like throwing the populace under the bus, because then we seem more extreme because we can't even have politicians align with us, you know? Anyways, there are other, at what time are you having to go?
Let's see. I can stay till the hour.
Okay. Do you want to look at Hakeem Jeffries on Massey, or
let's do Haley, because I feel like good old Haley.
Haley. I mean, she's like the most entertaining. I hate how funny she is. Like, she's actually hilarious. My favorite that's just kind of been like around today. Let me find.
She's definitely very camp. I feel like pretty soon we're going to get a drag queen that is like solely dedicated to her.
Would be.
And I hope they do a tour,
funny.
and I hope I get to see them in LA, because I would pay for a drag queen to make fun of Haley.
Literally. Okay, I'm going to do this. Like, it's the shortest video, but this is Haley. I mean, people have seen like the Israel comes.
I am going to be working on our behalf. I am going to be telling the stories on our behalf. And you better believe I'm going to be doing it with a little bit of joy, a little bit of enthusiasm, a little bit of energy, and a little bit of stick it to them. Because that's the Mexican way. I am going to be.
So that is Haley Stevens. She is up against Abdul Sayed. She is crazy, actually, but there's been like so much money. So she's the one who like, oh, okay, we've already shown people this, but she's one who's like, Israel, when I am in Senate, I will fight for the people of Israel. Israel comes to me in my dreams. I'm like, you literally are supposed to be a U.S. senator. That is so insane. Some of the things that, I mean, it could have been the outside spenders, but she sent mailers specifically to Black voters with a quote from Obama saying that she was like critical of some, auto reform, whatever. But it is an old quote from years and years ago. And people actually have voted for her because they think Obama endorsed her. The UAW had to write a cease and desist because she used their logo on something to make it look like she's endorsed by the auto workers union. I mean,
which is my union. I'm a union rep for UAW. So like,
oh my
that's
gosh,
crazy.
That is like, no, that is crazy. Okay, but fortunately, this is the first time that I have seen oh no. Current Affairs magazine has an article saying she is an extremist. She's not a centrist, and we have to stop calling that centrist. It is extreme to be committed to making life better for the people of another country when like there are people starving here in your own country. It's extreme to like not want to abolish ICE. It's extreme to take money from, even though it's like normal right now, but it's extreme to be owned by, to spend at this point, $50 million has been spent propping her up. That is extreme. How is that not extreme?
Well, the last time I was here with you guys, Steve shared the Substack article that I made on how, socialism used to like literally throw you in jail, and now it's like winning elections. It's that same ideology of like, you used to get thrown in jail if you were considered to be a foreign agent or like working for a foreign agent. That was the entire premise of the Red Scare, was like, oh, these people are foreign agents. It wasn't just that they were identifying with communism or even just sympathizing with it. It was specifically, the premise was, you are acting as a foreign agent under our American Constitution, therefore you are, causing sedition, basically. Like you're trying to start a coup, essentially. Like that was their premise. How we have gotten to today, where for the last 50 years, 40 years, whatever it's been, we have literally had American politicians acting as foreign agents for the Israel apartheid colonial state. And there hasn't been an Israeli scare, right? Like whatever the equivalent of the Red Scare would be, by definition. And
instead,
all
it's
of that
been
has been by design.
Yeah.
Yes. All of that has been by design because of the George W. Bush era, not the first one, the second one. With the 9/11, fear-mongering Islamophobia, right? Like all of that has been weaponized. These people are foreign agents and we need to treat them as such. Haley can suck my entire dick.
Oh yeah.
She literally sounds like
too busy.
She's been sucking too much dick.
Yeah.
Yes, like she literally it sounds like she has like food stuck in her mouth or something when she talks, right? Like it sounds like you've been sucking too much dick and you need to stop. And I don't understand why we are not enforcing this. Even on the progressive side, we need to reinforce the idea of foreign agents acting on behalf of foreign governments, because that is exactly what's been happening.
Yeah. And I know I get tired of when I talk about, because I'm very intentional about making sure we talk about Israel as a separate entity from us, even though, yes, it is an extension of our colonial empire, imperialism, but we literally funded part of the Nakba, all of that. But also there is a group that's trying to be like, no, they're controlling us. And it's like, no, we really need to stop acting like they can control us. We're the ones with all the fucking money. There's anyway. So tomorrow there's a vote. Thomas Massey introduced. He's a Republican.
I just saw Jonathan's comment.
Yeah.
That's good.
God, don't change. there is a vote tomorrow. Thomas Massey, who is a Republican, which this vote has. Oh, this was part of like an Obama MOU where every year we give $3.3 billion to Israel that they can use to buy our weapons and some of it to buy their own weapons. Again, I don't see how they are controlling us when we are just giving them this much money. We have all the, anyways. So that vote is tomorrow, and Hakeem Jeffries sent a letter out to the entire Democratic caucus. I don't want to, basically saying that he is not going to support it because it will limit our ability to fight terrorism. Meanwhile, earlier this weekend, his own colleague, Ro Khanna, was detained by Israeli settlers who are not even supposed to be in the West Bank, who have been actually terrorizing people in the West Bank. The IDF sat there and supported them and laughed. The IDF is not supposed to be in the West Bank. They have killed countless people, countless Palestinians. It is confirmed to be a genocide. I don't know how many times we have to say that. How, like, the way that they choose to use terrorism when we are the ones funding the terrorism, we really, these people need to get a grip. Like, I do not know how he is a leader anymore. Like, I don't know how people are not done with this. I don't know if people are just so used to it, but it's like what do you mean you're not going? If you don't do, like, I cannot wrap my head around it. So fuck Hakeem Jeffries.
Yeah. So all I have to say about this is anybody, including progressives, that decided to continue to back Jeffries, like, especially ones who are claiming to be pro-Palestinian rights and pro, a free Palestine. This is your boy. This is your guy. He's like all fucking about it. Again, he's a foreign fucking agent. And Ro Khanna is in my state, in California, and was very explicitly clear that these people literally were held them up. I don't even say detained because they're not law enforcement. They are not military. So no, he was not detained. He was held freaking hostage by a bunch of illegal occupiers. That's the legal the actual definition, not the legal one. The actual definition of a settler is an illegal occupier. So they embrace the name of being a settler because they know exactly what the fuck they're doing, and they continue to do it under our tax dollars. Like, our money goes to fund them being able to be settlers, to fund their construction on occupied Palestinian land, to fund the construction of the so-called Iron Dome, to fund their free healthcare and all of these, like, I think they get Israeli women get like stipends for having, children, and so they get to be stay-at-home moms essentially on our tax dollars. Our tax dollars go to fund that lifestyle so that they can continue having more babies. And those babies then continue to occupy even more land. And they are indoctrinated into this colonial settler ideology. So this is what this guy on the so-called Democratic opposition is going for. And it aligns with the same interests as the Republicans. And it also aligns, if you think this has nothing to do with capitalism, I need you to pick up a fucking history book, because this has everything to do with capitalism. And the last thing I want to say, he mentioned, that his reasoning was, this is going to hinder our ability to fight terrorism. This is the same Islamophobic talking point about how Arabs are terrorists. We cannot trust them, and that we need to have quote unquote allies in the Middle East to kill as many Arabs as possible so that we can continue to control that situation. And again,
it's ethnic cleansing.
Capitalism. But yes, but the whole point, why do you think that they need to ethnically cleanse the native population there? Because it's all about capital. It's all colonization is about capital. It's about gaining as much profit as possible. That's what it's for. That's what he's advocating for. He should not be considered a Democrat at this point.
No, he shouldn't. I'm going to show, for if anyone who like doesn't understand how it's related to capitalism, I'm going to end by showing the list of companies that the ADL says would be anti-Semitic to boycott.
Oh Lord.
And first of all, a lot of them are involved in ICE.
Surprise,
of course.
Shakur.
And
I
so
had
it's
no
like,
idea.
how are we supposed to ADL anti-Semitic companies Francesca Albanese, that's her name. Albanese called to boycott these companies for oh, am I showing it? No, I'm not. Duh. How do I do this? Okay. Moving it here. And then we can go. But they say it is anti-Semitic to boycott Airbnb, Google, Amazon, BlackRock, Booking, Caterpillar, Chevron, HP, IBM, Lockheed Martin, Microsoft, and Palantir because they're so critical to Israel. This is capitalism.
Mm-hmm.
They are dependent on Israel, and Israel is dependent on them, and that is what it comes down to. It's these people who are controlling our politicians, who are controlling everything. And so, yes, it has everything. Why the fuck would it be anti-Semitic to boycott these companies? That is fucking insane.
But also, like, that word dependency is so important because the United States is completely dependent on Chevron, like companies like Chevron and Chevron itself. We are completely dependent on Google for gathering information. We are completely dependent on what's this other one? Airbnb. Like, there is literally almost zero competition for Airbnb at this point. Like maybe one or two other companies. Like these are monopolies, which means the only way that you get to a monopoly is by making people dependent on your product and your product alone, so much so that that any competition scales in comparison. That's what a monopoly is. We are supposed to have laws against monopolies, and yet we continue to have them. Why? Because people are acting as foreign agents.
Yes, full circle moment. Ugh, okay, well, it is a little bit past the hour. So, I don't think it's anti-Semitic here. Whether or not. Well, no, but still under like the West Bank, they're like under Israel's law, there's areas A, B, and C, but they are under international law. They're not supposed to be there at all. But it's okay. We won't have to get into that right now. We can talk about this another day. Thank you so much for coming by. Where can people follow you? What are you up to?
Yeah, so I did take a little bit of a social media break, but I'm back. So people can find me on my Instagram at Eliana.Chinea and my YouTube, which is Eliana Chinea without the period.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you for coming by.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Bye, everyone.